Hi guys, hi everybody. Hope you're all well. I'm Adam, here with Mark. Hope everybody's well. I really appreciate everybody joining us, by the way. I appreciate for a lot of people, it's the end of quarter. And that's not just the end of quarter, but also end of H2, which means end of year. So hopefully you'll take something away from today that's going to help you maybe close one of your deals that you're working on, or get further along the line with one of your Q4s. All right, so let's start, and then we can get the latecomers in. Thanks so much for being punctual, everyone. Really appreciate it. Quick intros. I'm talking, so I'll start. I'm Adam Baker. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Dealpad. Dealpad helps enterprise sales teams align with their buyers through their complex processes. Mark and I have worked together for a while now. Mark is a deal coach, and Mark, you can speak for yourself.
I'm a deal coach, and I've been selling enterprise software for now 4 decades. I've been fortunate enough to help lots and lots of reps increase wins, increase deal value, increase recurring revenue. I've been very fortunate to be with a number of startups. We've taken 7 companies to a point of acquisition, 3 companies to a point of an IPO. And my last 2 roles was as a global vice president of sales at IBM, and then subsequently at Sales Software. So now I'm in the business of helping reps sell more in an independent capacity.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. So the title of today's session is Accelerate Enterprise Deals by Helping Customers Buy. So we're gonna focus very much on that and go a few layers down around the elements that normally help customers buy. Before we get to that, how you doing, Mark? How's your day?
My day is going great, and I have good news to report that one of the reps who I coach on a regular basis for my client, he actually closed a deal this morning. So this was a deal that was scheduled to close January, February, March. We really didn't have it certainly wasn't forecast for this quarter, but we put together a plan and we demonstrated value to where it made sense for the client to use some discretionary funds to buy now. So it's actually a good day.
Awesome. Can you talk a bit about what levers you pulled to bring that forward?
So this is an organization that the rep had been working with for some time. They always showed buying signs, they always showed interest, but like anybody, this is a group that's been in business for 50 plus years. They weren't going out of business by not having my client's technology. And we were working with a particular champion who was a very, very strong sponsor of the technology, but really wasn't doing as good of a job internally to rally executive support. And what it really came down to, all deals are political. This individual was reporting to a vice president who did not want to disrupt the status quo, didn't want to go any higher than himself, wanted to control his team. And when we learned what the savings was associated with this purchase, it was fairly material. It was about a $10 million a year savings on $1 million purchase. So I asked the rep, why don't you just get, whoever cares about that $10 million a year savings, why don't you get their contact information and just contact them directly? And that person took the individual's call, the rep got their attention, and people did the right thing for the business. And now they're in a position to save that $10 million a year.
Yeah, that's awesome. I guess a couple of questions on the back of that. Obviously, I'm not privy to the deal. So one is, why did it take so long for the rep to understand that was the value they were able to give the company? Because I mean, again, if that is very, very compelling, why wasn't that used earlier? And the second was, well, actually answer that one first. What happened?
So it actually was used very, very early on in the sales cycle, and to the rep's credit, every time that he would have a call with the team, one of the things I coach is always start every discussion with why we're having this discussion. Nobody buys technology for the sake of technology. They buy it to improve the business. So this individual in the very, very early stages of the sales cycle did a wonderful job of identifying what's important to the client. That's not features and functions. That's having conversations that matter, translating the features and functions into what the C-suite would be interested in. In this case, we were dealing with a gatekeeper that did not want to act on this. And I'm choosing my words carefully, but we think that this individual might have been on their way either out of the organization or towards retirement, really didn't want this additional work. And so while this rep was doing a very, very good job of articulating why we're talking about a purchase, which was this $10 million, it was only getting to certain people. When we learned that the real stakeholder who would benefit from this was not part of these discussions, we threw a Hail Mary pass, took a risk, and the rep did what was in the best interest of his future customer and said, look, I'm sorry if I'm disrupting things. I'm sorry, I don't mean to get into your politics, but at the end of the day, we do have a solution. It's been validated to help you save this amount of money. That person, I believe, called him back within I don't know, not the hour, let's say, but within a couple hours. And that accelerated material discussions with the people that matter. So part of it was trusting the process. Part of it was trusting the individual who wanted to get it done, because they still had to go through what executives need to get something approved. They still need to check, do we have a technical advocate? Do we have a business sponsor? Do we have a business case? Do we have somebody to align resources? And do we have a project plan? And fortunately, the rep had done all of this with this lower level team. It was just going nowhere to this individual's boss. It absolutely resonated with a different stakeholder, and they made things happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess they would be called the mobilizer, that individual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Exactly. And I think that, I mean, it's so important that you're able to access what I would call the authority, the person that actually has the problem and owns the problem. And with enterprise, you've really got to drive for a critical business problem, because that's what the CFO and the CEO and the C-suite care about. And I've had plenty of examples. One was, we were working on a deal. We had a customer, very low ACV, 5 billion revenue organization, and we were just trying to kind of expand through. And it turns that we were working with a small entity a local entity as part of that large conglomerate. Turns out that they had a massive noose around their neck, where they were going to be fined like $30 million if they couldn't reach compliance within the next couple of years on something. And they had no idea how they were going to do it. And the CFO and the CEO had literally been scrambling around for months trying to figure this out and couldn't. Yet they were working with us. We were already a customer, a vendor. They were a customer of ours, and they didn't even know it. So when we managed to reach the CFO, he was like, oh my God, I didn't realize. And that turned into a 9 million contract for us. And I think the ACV we had at the time was like 15K. It was just ridiculous. But to your point, getting to the right people that have that critical problem is the most important thing that I think you can do. How important do you think, particularly in the situation you just described, is having a coach? And who is the coach? Is it that kind of the person that you just described there, almost your champion, but doesn't really have the influence, and it's going up to VP, which isn't, and then there's the blocker. Who's the coach in that kind of deal? Because that's really important.
So, you know what, Adam, it just occurred to me. We're going to answer questions, but I have a feeling we're going to be telling a lot of stories, and which is fun. But to answer your question, I've been selling for 4 decades into large enterprises. I don't think I've ever bought from somebody who didn't like me and didn't want me to win. And similarly, I don't think I've ever helped a customer buy technology where my coach's sponsor, executive sponsor, didn't want them to win. Coaches are absolutely vital. And if there isn't somebody that wants to buy your product, there's not any sale going to happen. Companies don't buy from companies. That might be what's on the purchase order. That might be what's on the invoice. But people buy from individuals. So I think what makes up a coach is, I coach a very, very prescriptive sales methodology, which is quickly and concisely articulate what your technology does, how it helps other organizations, how you think it might help your future customers' environment, and then, start asking questions like, how are you doing things today? Is that working for you? Are you working weekends to have to do that? Is there just too much? How does it impact the business? And then what's your vision of a ideal solution? And what I'm doing there is, or what my reps are doing that I'm coaching is, number one, they're giving the individual a voice. I learned a long time ago, even though my senior management would always tell us, call high, call high. You know what? I've done a lot of business with General Motors. I've never met a C-level person at General Motors. That's just not me. So I've always worked especially innovative, disruptive technology sales from the bottom up with a coach. And now I'm going to tell you another story. So several years ago, I was the rep. I was selling a piece of technology, and they asked me to do a demonstration, and I flew to Detroit, Michigan to do a demonstration, flew from Chicago, and at the end of the demo, they said, "Oh my gosh, Mark, that's fantastic. It's exactly what we need." I said, "That's fantastic. How do we proceed?" I was so excited. They said, "Well, your competition is upstairs with procurement negotiating a $10 million deal." What? How good could the demo have been? And I said, well, wait a second. Now, I'd flown out there, so the least they could do was not throw me out yet. We were done with the demo. We decided, let's go have a beer. That's what we did. And I said, just out of curiosity, what's the other group promising you for $10 million? Well, we have a number of systems that we need to integrate. So that's good. Why do you want to do that? Well, we think if we integrated all these different systems, when we buy from one vendor in Asia Pacific, we can get the same discount that we're getting from them in Europe. I said, that's brilliant. How does that impact the business? Why would you do that? Well, we think if we do that, we can reduce our annual spend by 2%. Oh, again, brilliant. What's your annual spend? $16 billion. Okay. So this other vendor is promising you $320 million. Correct. Over what period of time? I said, well, it's a 3-year project. That's when we're going to get that 320 savings. I said, okay, so you're going to spend $10 million to get $320 million over the course of 3 years. And we had a couple beers by then, but then I had to ask. I said, who in that building would be interested in receiving that savings this fiscal quarter? And we started a proof of concept. And when I picked up my order, not for $10 million, but for $2 million, still respectable, and I had to be significantly less to disrupt this whole thing and get everybody's attention because the other vendor had worked very, very hard. When I picked up my order, I said, hi, I'm Mark Phinick, and the Senior VP of Procurement shared with me, hey, I know you. You're the guy who saved me $8 million. Now, it never would have happened if I didn't have a genuine coach there whispering in my ear how this other vendor was sending executives out and suits out. You need somebody who wants to buy your product, who fights for you, because as much as you think that you are in command of a deal, the second you get off of a group call, there's a meeting internally, they're talking, should we proceed? Do we like this salesperson? Do we trust this salesperson? Are they credible? And then it comes down to, how do we shift from being across the table, vendor to customer? How do we pivot to being sitting along the same side as them at the table and collaborating on helping them achieve their business outcomes? And, to your credit, this is what I love so much about Dealpad. I'm a big fan of using mutual action plans with action zoners and dates, where the coach and myself, or the rep that I'm coaching, we put together a game plan, a treasure map, if you will. These are the things that we both need to accomplish to deliver the improvements needed for the business. And, Excel works great. I love Dealpad for this. I have a couple clients using it. But, finding a coach, working with the coach, making the coach wildly successful, meaning having a goal of helping them improve their lot in life. The same thing with reps, but also elevate in the organization. Many of the holiday cards that I get right now are from vice presidents and CIOs and CISOs that when we started working, they were admins or enterprise architects that over the course of time, myself and others, we helped them elevate. Long answer to your question, coaches are critical.
Yeah. And I think that most people focus on getting their champion. And often the champion is the coach, but a lot of times they're not the coach. And I don't see enough focus, particularly in enterprise, on finding that coach. And I think what tends to happen is probably what happened with the guy that closed the deal today is that they had a champion that couldn't navigate through the organization, didn't have the influence, got stuck at VP level, and nobody was coaching this person. And if they had a coach, it might have been easier. So I think getting a coach on these deals is massively important.
And so, Adam, I think here's what I observed, and this was the catalyst for me launching this company, this deal coaching company. I started seeing when I was at my previous employers, deals slipping on a routine basis. Now, when you're with a large organization focused on EBITDA, you can let deals go. It's the cost of doing business, lots and lots of reps. You just look at it, it's a numbers game, because you can also make it up with your renewals number. There's lots of ways to make your EBITDA numbers. But when you're a relatively small startup, you're a seed stage or a Series A, Series B, Series C software company, every new deal is absolutely critical. That means that you have got to have sales skills in addition to product skills. And what I saw and was the catalyst for me launching this company, quite candidly, was with COVID, I saw a lot of new reps entering into the job market with zero experience in face-to-face meetings, let alone meals, let alone events where you're bonding with people, forming friendships, forming relationships. We used to sell a different way. We would bring in Sandler, we'd bring in Miller Hyman, we would have face-to-face training classes, and we would learn how to interact with people. The world is different right now, where for a period of time during COVID, there was no face-to-face training. It was, look, we just hired a rep. Our rainmakers are focused on selling deals. Our managers are focused on building forecasts and hiring and staffing. What do we do with this person? How do we train them? Oh, let's give them a bunch of videos on how the product differentiates itself. So what I'm saying is a number of sellers either have never been exposed to the true sales training that people, myself, I'm 63 years old. I've been gifted with working with literally the very, very most successful sales leaders in the industry. Those have built the infrastructure on which we're building AI and the internet and such. And we've all sold the infrastructure that these organizations are basing on. The new sellers have not received that training. They're getting product training. So the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing deal coaching, is to bridge that gap, bridge that knowledge gap. And what I'm seeing, to my delight and their employer's delight, is the vast majority of these reps are taking, my teachings of 40 years worth of doing this, and they're absolutely seeing the results without having this. They can't read as many books as I've forgotten. They can't do it as quickly, but they have an urgent timeline. They've got a quota. They've got a ramp up period. So having a deal coach is helping them quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think getting a coach is important. Let's move on to, the topic of this whole kind of chat really is helping customers buy. And I think that one of the biggest levers that I've seen in enterprise sales for helping customers buy is interviewing and understanding who your groups are inside that, in your buyer. So who are going to be the user group? How many are there? 5, 10, 100? Who's your decision-making group? Who's your signatory group? You know, where does value sit here, and who cares about that? And almost just kind of building out these different groups of people in your buying team and talking to them during your pre-sales process, getting 30 minutes of their time. And it could mean that you're sitting, 10 to 20 hours of calls before you've even gone through a discovery to talk to this buying team. If you've got a customer that you think is banging your ICP, you think there's a pain. And the value of that, in my experience, is you're then going to get 10, 15 different people giving you the reasons why they want to buy, right? And what you'll find is that everybody has a different reason. The value and the outcomes that people want to achieve or expect to achieve are going to be different. And when you just rely on your champion or the people, one or two people at the kind of upper echelons of that organization, they're not going to be using the software, right? They're not going to be sat in that seat every day. So the people that are sitting in that seat every day, what do they want to achieve here? What does success look like for them? And the more of this information you can garner, you can then build into conversations that you have with C-suite, and you can build into your business case. And so if you've got to take this to a committee, you know much more about, what success looks like throughout the company. I don't know many reps or many organizations doing that. And because it's time consuming, you can't do it on every deal. But where you've got, these big enterprise deals, you can afford, and you should afford to take those times. What's your experience of that, Mark? And how has it worked? If it has worked, if you've done it for you?
Yeah. So there's a lot there. So let's go back to this notion of a coach, and let's just put a simple Sesame Street simple explanation of what a coach is. And I'm sure, whether you're doing MEDDIC or you're doing some other methodology, other people have different definitions. In my world, a coach is somebody who trusts you, you trust them, and they want you to win, and they're guiding you to the extent that they can. Let's just keep it very simple. The coach could be any role and any level. It might be an admin, it might be an enterprise architect, it might be a board member, it might be a CEO, it might be a senior executive. What I have found is having empathy for the customer's, I hate to use the term buying journey, but let's just call it that, for the customer's journey, because it's different for every single customer, but there is a journey, and it's usually all over the map. For having empathy for what the customer needs to go through to buy software these days, I think is probably the most important skill that an enterprise sales rep can have. And so one of the things that I've always attempted to do, and one of the things I've coached my reps to do, is let's find out who wants to make this happen and who wants to help their team be successful. And I remember countless discussions with senior level, but not C-level executives, people who want the innovation that we're selling. They want the increased efficiencies. They want the increased productivity. They're not going to be using the products, but they absolutely understand that their team has never done this before. Let's just agree that the people evaluating our technology don't buy it as much as we sell it. They're the ones hands on keyboards. They're doing the work that needs to be done that we can help automate. They'll get more done in a day, not having to work weekends. And believe me, their management knows that they work for large, complex organizations where priorities change, processes change all the time, committees change. We may be all set to buy something on a given date, but then we as the customer, maybe we lost a big deal and we have to prioritize spend. Instead of buying, we were all set to buy this pen. Instead of buying this pen, maybe we have to buy something else that's going to have a higher ROI and a faster payback period. So to the extent that you can align with somebody to help you understand the organization, role-wise, organizationally, as well as emotionally and politically, is absolutely critical. So the notion of an organizational map is key, because then you can start mapping your own team to those people. You've got a senior level person, great. You work for a startup company or a large company. When I was at IBM, Ginny Rometty would absolutely be in touch with our senior most executives at the customers. Same thing with HCL. People want to deal with people in their own capacity and at their own level. So to the extent that you can earn demonstrate credibility, demonstrate trust, and earn that with a senior level person, and then have them provide you with the organizational map, that way you know where to aim. That way you know where to go to find what are these stakeholders' responsibilities, what are their MBOs. I've met with CISOs who get paid to remediate more vulnerabilities. They get a bonus the more vulnerabilities that they remediate or work with IT to remediate. You have to understand what's their daily goal. Is it to do more of X? Great. How can you help them do more of X? Do they have a career aspiration? How can you help them do that? In terms of the people on keyboards and the actual users, I'm always prone to ask, how much is your job cutting into your personal life? During ransomware attacks, there were a lot of people working weekends. And this is always the case. And senior management will argue, well, they're just IT people. And if they don't want the job, we'll go to Ukraine, we'll go to India, we'll go to Indonesia, we'll get resources. Well, can I help you do your job in an hour versus a day? Can I help you do your job in a day versus a weekend? So I'm a big fan of empathy. I'm a big fan of appealing to an individual and helping them do their job better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think along to fit into that, it's a good segue in, because I think the value is the key driver for any organization to make a purchase. It's not product. And I talk a lot about why customers buy. What is the customer buying? Because they're not, to your point earlier, they're not buying software. They're not buying a feature. They're buying an outcome. What is that outcome? How big can it be? And how aspirational can you make it for them? And how can you prove it? And so the value is really, really critical. And I think most enterprise sellers are very good at showing outcomes and value. But
I totally disagree.
Do you really?
Totally disagree.
Oh, okay. Well, we can get onto that. So to cover that in a sec, my question to you, and then you can answer that why you disagree with it, is how do you continue to show value throughout a long process to multiple stakeholders? So, most enterprise deals are going to take anywhere from 12 months to 48 months, maybe. That's a long time to keep.
All depends on how big that problem is and who cares about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. But at a point that you're writing a check that's, above $1 million, there's a committee, there's a process, there's a vendorship going on. You're not going to be the only company that company are evaluating. How do you keep showing value to all the right people in that process as the deal goes on?
Yeah. So let's go back to the first story we told. I just lived this with my rep, my client's rep. The sales cycle had stalled. It stalled for a long time. They were planning on buying next quarter. But as soon as the right person heard about the savings, I can assure you that was a fast track deal. It's not like they had this money budgeted. It if you can find the right person in an organization who has a problem big enough that they can solve now, the notion of enterprise deals requiring 12 to 48 months goes out the window. People make decisions on a dime like that for the right problem. So let's talk about value and how you bring that out in a discussion.
Let me pause you there, Mark, because I think you've just hit on something that I think hopefully will resonate with this group as well, because it definitely resonates with me. And that is, a lot of enterprise deals take a while, right? Unless you, to your point, you've got someone that's got an immediate pain. And if it's an immediate critical pain, they want to solve it fast. I've experienced it. The kind of the antidote that I gave you earlier was the same, right? So what's the best thing to do if you're an enterprise seller? Is it to try and get access to the person that owns that problem at a global level? So let's say they're a kind of a global conglomerate, 10 billion revenue. The CEO sits in Singapore, for example, right? Very unlikely you're going to get access to them, but they're the owner of that problem. Do you persist in trying to show that individual the cost of do nothing, or the value you can generate fast based on a problem they've got, the business has got? Or do you start somewhere lower and more local and expand through? And I think a lot of AEs start more local and expand through to that big critical problem, but it might never get there. And so it's that balance between, I know we can solve this huge critical problem they've got, and it's going to save them 30 million, to your point. But getting to that person, you're quite lucky that you did it, but it's probably going to be quite difficult. But I know also that I can probably, to your point again, when you went into the company that were kind of in procurement and you went in with a 2 million POC, you could have probably gone in and got 8 million from them and saved them 2 million. But you went in at 2, right? And you got the relationship built, and now you've got an opportunity to expand that account. What do you do if you're an enterprise rep?
Yes. Let's agree that no two deals are alike. Let's just start there. So, boy, if I was at a networking event or a cocktail party and I happened to bump into somebody and they were kind enough to share with me that they were a board member or the CEO of a multinational conglomerate and they had a business problem or spending to solve, and they pulled me aside and they just listened to my pitch, and they made 2 phone calls that night. The following day, the attorneys dropped what they were doing and procurement dropped what they were doing, and and they sent me a PO. Oh my God, that would be fantastic. Let's just assume that's not going to happen. All right. So it used to be the case, it started, let's just say Y2K, and a little bit after that, when everybody needed relational database management systems, it was the case where it was Informix, Sybase, and Oracle would go make pitches, and everybody was talking about calling high because these were senior level decisions, and quite candidly, whoever had the best relationship up high, the decisions flowed down and IT was told, you'll use this. I've seen this plenty of times in my career. I've also seen it work against people trying to sell like that. I had established a very nice relationship with a Fortune 50 entertainment company, and I was helping them sell my technology internally to all of their various subsidiaries when my competitor sent a very senior level executive a note saying that they can do what I was doing for $500,000 a year cheaper. And all of a sudden, my world was disrupted, and 2 things happened. My sponsors, my coaches, my champions, this individual at this other company went over their heads. And so immediately destroyed all relationships that they might have earned that I continued to have, because I commiserated with them. Now, long story short, when it came down to selecting the technology, while this senior executive said, I want to use this other product, somebody else in that room said, great, you'll be the one to tell our board why we switched from Mark's product to this other one when we get breached. Now, when you talk about this particular organization, it's a top 10 brand. So brand equity is everything. They're not in a position to get breached. This other salesperson took it upon them to call high inappropriately. They had nobody there to support them. Now, Adam, you've led teams before. When a salesperson comes to you and says, I'm smarter than your team, who's the first person that you go to validate what they're saying? You go to your team. And if your team says, no, let us do our jobs. If you want to do the job as the senior muckety muck, as a senior boss, you do it. But you're hiring smart people to go do the work. So I share this with you because it's 2024. Senior executives have lots and lots and lots of people to speak with vendors. They don't need sales reps contacting them. Now, if a board member calls another board member or a CEO calls another CEO and tells them, hey, I'm using this, you need to look at it, that's fantastic. I am not an advocate of cold calling a senior executive with no credibility whatsoever. I am a huge advocate of finding people like enterprise architects who have holistic visibility across the enterprise and who, if I make them wildly successful, they can introduce me to lots and lots of projects. I am wildly supportive of individuals who post a lot on LinkedIn about a particular subject, and to some extent, I want to appeal to their ego, but what I really want to do is I want to help them be wildly successful in their organization. So I'm still trying my best to bring old style people to people selling skills to a world that is in favor of a repless society. And there's no surprise to me, it's not lost on me that the word repless sounds like the word reckless. Yep. Sales reps need to appeal to the people who will ultimately be coaches in their organizations, but they need help. They need a repository, as we've talked about, to be able to share mutual action plans, proposals, assets, videos, collateral. They need to be able to point their own people to something to say, here's why I'm excited about this. Get excited yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I'm a huge fan of mutual action plans and collaboration with future clients to help them achieve their business outcomes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, we see that a lot. It's one of the things that Dealpad solves for. It's centralizing the process with your buyer and allowing buyers to bring each other in rather than the rep having to cold reach to a C-suite or an influencer, somebody that that they need to talk to about an SAP integration, for example. Otherwise, this deal is not going to get through. Me reaching out to that individual inside a large organization is probably going to return zero response because they just don't care.
Absolutely. So they're going to go to their own internal person. The other element of this is what happens if that individual, we used to use the euphemism, gets hit by a bus. I don't do that anymore because I was in a meeting and somebody said, you can't say that. That person's brother was hit by a bus. So now I say, what if they win a lottery? So what if the person who you're speaking with, your coach, your champion, wins the lottery? You need something there still that everybody can go to and maintain the continuity of the sales cycle. It used to be the case where, we would cadence our reps on, well, how many coaches do you have? How many champions do you have? Because if this one person, leaves the business or they get promoted or something, they win the lottery, you don't want to be in a position to start fresh. You need to just introduce everybody. Here's where all the information is. Let me show you what we've done so far.
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest challenges of enterprise sales, right, is a lot of conversations, a lot of evaluation, a lot of influence happens when we're not in the room. And
well, that's where it all happens. Exactly.
Yeah. And so how can we get in the room more? How can we get more people huddled together where we've got access to that? And it's a skill, but I think that empowering your buying team to bring each other in rather than relying on me as a seller having to go and bring them in. As I said, I've got no relationship with them. If you can do that, it makes a massive difference. And so you're really bringing that buying committee. You're gathering the buying committee together, but you're also bringing them to you. Let's go back, Mark, because I don't want to skip over the disagreement we had earlier, where you thought that, and rightly so, I'm sure, that enterprise reps aren't very good at showing value. Why do you think that?
Well, that's a strong statement. I chose a company name for my consultancy, for my deal coaching service called Let's Make It Rain, using the central theme of a rainmaker. A rainmaker is the top producer, right? Every sales leader knows 80% of their revenue comes from 20% of their reps. So let's just call them a rainmaker. Why don't we just say that the rainmakers might know how to do this? The vast majority of reps that I see when I first engage, here's what I see. And it's to nobody's fault. It's just, I think this is more human nature. And because they don't have the training and they don't have the coaching, it just perpetuates. Here's the scenario I see. A sales rep gets a meeting. They bring on a technical person. I'm talking about high technology. I'm talking about software sales. So they get somebody on and the customer likes what they're seeing. This is fantastic. Let's get another meeting. Oh my God, this is fantastic. We got to bring this person in. We got to bring this person in. They end the call. Unfortunately, we didn't ask why was it fantastic. There's a reason that somebody took the time to go to a website, to go to a webinar, to go to a demo, to do a proof of concept, to risk their career and ask for money. And what I'm suggesting is most reps, that 80%, maybe some of the 20, are so enamored with getting positive affirmation and hearing that things are just going great. We used to call it having happy years. We still do. They're afraid of a no. Now, if you follow Chris Voss, famous negotiator, he'll tell you, look for no's.
Yeah, because they lead to yeses.
Yeah, well, maybe or maybe not. Yeah. Maybe you learn so much, and really what they're doing is feeding you a bunch of hooey just to get to the demo, just to get to the price. And maybe they're actually in negotiation with somebody else. I lived that. I shared with you that story. Had I not asked why, I wouldn't have been able to tell the story. I wouldn't have that great story. So what I'm sharing with you, and this is the catalyst for my business, is helping reps. Let the conversation breathe. Pause. When you're doing a demonstration, before doing the demonstration, ask what they need to see demonstrated. Understand why they need to see that demonstrated. How are you doing that today? What's the business impact? Is it taking too many people? Does it cost too many? Do you have too many tools doing it? Is one of the tools going out of commission? Understand why they need to see that particular capability. Don't go on to the next one until you do that. And then when you're doing the demo, because invariably there are now people seeing the product for the first time. They don't know about your coaching session or your discussion with the coach. They don't know how great everything is. So, and then, by the way, they had other meetings before this demo. Maybe they had a fight with their spouse. Maybe their kids are, flunking out of school. They got other things on their mind. Maybe they just got yelled at with their boss. You got to bring them back to squarely talk about their problem. They're the patient, you're the doctor. And then once again, Here's what you've asked us to demonstrate. Is there anything else? Yes, add this, add this. All right, fine. How do you do this today? For everybody to see the pain, demonstrate it. How did we do? What's the impact if we were to make this one change? Then go on to the next one. This is not about closing on a demo. If we need more time, we'll schedule more time. I see too many reps approaching a red light, metaphorically, at a traffic stop, and rather than slowing down and stopping for safety, they see the yellow light, they blast through, they get T-boned, and that's the end of the sale.
Yeah. No, I hear you, and I don't think all of it, any of us, are kind of indexed towards getting no's. We're worried about what we're going to hear, but actually, it's the best way of learning, isn't it? It's the best way of finding out what you need to do. If it all goes right on a deal, actually, you apply that to the next deal, it's not going to work. Why not? But if you start to really index towards why things aren't working out, typically you can apply that to your deals.
Let them tell you where to aim.
Exactly.
Right? Where did I miss something? Yeah.
We're running out of time. This has been a great conversation. We should probably do a part 2 of this. I wanted to ask you a question, and we've got some questions as well. So I want to get to those. We've got 9 minutes. So very quickly, what are the 2 kind of, I guess, biggest things you look for when you are doing a deal review, a deal inspection, that's going to be a red flag for that deal stalling or slipping?
Number one, if the seller doesn't understand the why,
The why now or the why?
Well, why and why now, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, I'm of the opinion, if you can, everybody can describe what they do or what they want to do. Now, the magic question is why. And when you get to the why, you typically can understand then who cares about that, which will absolutely dictate to you the when.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to our discussion before about rallying a deal, yes, enterprise deals at a normal pace could take time, depending upon the problem that they need to solve, such as a cyber attack, something that causes the organization to act urgently because their stock price is going down, or they're going to miss their quarter, or they're going to pay a compliance fine. If there's a business problem we're spending money on, they're going to act quickly. That means that lawyers, even though they may have your deal 5th or 6th in priority, guess what? The right person can move it to the top of the list. Procurement can take a deal that's going to another vendor and reroute that to you if you've got the right solution.
Yeah. What's number 2?
Why a deal is going to slip? I'm going to stick with the why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Unconventionally, I'm going to answer your question by saying there's not 2, there's 1.
Well, I guess a few things that I've seen is not understanding how many signatures are needed. A lot of reps don't focus on that. They just assume it's going to be one signatory, or actually, if there's a number of signatures, I always ask at the beginning, how many signatures are we going to need? Who are they?
How many signatures? Are they going to be on vacation? Absolutely.
Exactly. Are they around? Is a committee needed to approve this? Often the buyer doesn't know the answer to these questions, and they have to go back into their organization and find them out. And it's really good that they do that early. And a second, I think, is just probably more of a kind of a data one, is just the stage that deal is sat in the pipeline. So I will always look at other deals we've closed that look like this one, and how long has it sat in each stage of the pipeline, and what is this kind of moving at the right pace? Do we have all of the people that we usually get in these types of deals lined up, and have we got access to them, and are we having regular conversations with them? But Mark, this has been great. I'm going to bring Linda Jones in. She's got a question. So Linda, I've added you. Do you want to ask your question? And you're on mute at the moment. You can unmute yourself. Maybe you can't.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Linda.
Yeah, good stuff. I enjoyed the whole webinar, and it's perfect information for any sales rep at any level. But my question is how, I know you talked about person to person momentum. It's kind of, the young people think it's, the old style, but it really is, I think, the most effective. But how did you find that to create that momentum around the SLED and Gov clients, especially because they have so many restrictions around, what they can do legally, ethically, what can you do for them with them around, events or groups, that type of thing? That makes sense.
It's a great question because and I led federal and SLED sales before, so I have a little bit of experience there. But you're right, you've got to stay within the guidelines, but the guidelines don't always translate into buying gifts and taking them to events. Let's just boil it down to just treating somebody with kindness and respect and empathy on the phone, and earning trust and earning credibility and genuinely earning their confidence that you can help them do their jobs better. I don't mean to oversimplify it, but there's just a lot of reps out there. They're just trying to slam deals, and customers really respect a relationship where you're genuinely interested in helping them do their jobs better. Now, I can speak to experience with helping, the Big Ten schools with a certain technology. I can speak to experience with helping 65 federal agencies standardize on technologies. There's things that we did to put ourselves in a position, but I have to tell you, every single one of those relationships was done with the goal. Boy, I'm going to sound real corny, but will this person send me a holiday card at the holiday? Will I exchange gifts with, not a gifts, but a holiday greeting? And Linda, I'm sure that you still do this. There's people that you speak with New Year's Eve. They call you before they call their grandparents or parents. This is about building relationships with people who will trust you. I hope I answered your question, but there's no gimmicks here. This is about building trust.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. And thank you, Linda, for your question. Really appreciate it. We're running to the end of this session. I want to keep mindful of everybody's time. Thank you so much for joining. This recording will be sent out to you all. If you have any questions to us, please reach out directly. We'd love to answer those questions. And good luck for the rest of this quarter, rest of the year. Let's hope we smash it. And this has been helpful for you to maybe pull some deals through over the next 6 weeks or so. If you need any help, Mark and myself are here. That's what we love to do. So thanks everyone for joining. Really appreciate it.
Good luck, everybody. Bye-bye.
Okay.